Thank you. It is my pleasure to introduce James Croft, our leader here at the Ethical Society of St. Louis, who we all know and love, who shall now be speaking on how we can live our values when others won't.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you to Patrick for that exquisite music. There you are, I was looking for you in the crowd. That was lovely to hear that instrument that I'm not sure that I've heard before. I would thank Sean for his opening words, but he already thanked himself quite enough. So he doesn't get any more praise from me. No, they were excellent. Thank you, Sean. And thank you for keeping them within the prescribed 3 minutes. Very good. This morning, I want to pose a question. How do we hold on to our own values in a world which increasingly is moving away from them? In a world facing massive political polarization, rising extremism, obscene economic inequality, imminent climate catastrophe, war in Europe, the overturn of Roe v. Wade, how do we maintain our humanism? How, to put it bluntly, can we remain humanists in hell? Now, I don't have any answers for you today. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what you're expecting. If you're coming to a humanist congregation to hear people give you the answers about how to live, you're in the wrong place. But instead, this morning, I am going to bare my soul to you. I'm going to tell you how I've struggled with this question, and I hope perhaps you'll recognize some of your own struggles in my story, and the realization that we are all in this together will help us make a way through. Is that okay? Okay, good. So the story begins about 12 years ago when I gave my first ever talk about humanism. It was May 2010, it was winter, and I was 27 years old. Just 2 months earlier, I'd come out of the closet, having wrestled my demons to the ground and accepted myself as gay, appropriately enough, during a spring break service trip to New Orleans with the humanist graduate community at Harvard. That photo was taken the very day that happened. And if you're going to come out of the closet, I strongly recommend that you do it in New Orleans. There is genuinely no place better for it. The food is good, the bars are hopping, and the guys have that sexy southern drawl, which gets me going every single time. I don't know about you. And for this speech, I was the invited speaker for the Concord Area Humanists, which is a small but mighty group of Massachusetts humanists. I remember it was a crisp New England evening, one of those evenings when you want to breathe deep just to feel the cold air in your lungs. And I'd chosen the topic of my talk to be the most pompous one imaginable: humanism, creed of the 21st century. I wanted to inspire people to think of humanism more broadly and more deeply, not as a response or a reaction to religion, but as a total way of life, a way of living committed to 3 fundamental values: reason, compassion, and hope. And in fact, these are the very slides I used back then. I found them in the dusty, dark recesses of my hard drive. I gave my talk, and at the end I asked for questions from the audience, and a lady's hand shot up, a lady with big curly hair, an intense expression, and a passionate desire to ask me a question. I have since learned an important public speaker's lesson, which I will now impart to you for free. Never call on the first person who raises their hand to ask a question. But I was young and foolish back then, and I called on her, and she asked, "That was a lovely talk, but what is the point of all this? This humanist group, what is the point of it?" And I've thought about that question a lot in the past 12 years. What is the point of all this? I don't mean the existential question, what is the point of our life on this planet? But the more direct question, what is the point of communities like this one, gatherings like we are having right now at the Ethical Society of St. Louis? Now, I didn't have a great answer for that lady with the big hair, but since then, I've had a lot of time to think about it, and I think back then I was thinking something like this. This is my Saving the World for Humanism, a 3-point plan by James Croft, age 27 years old. 1, humanists have the best values. You're supposed to agree with that. You're all off. We accept the truth about the human condition, that we are alone in an uncaring universe and we have to make our own way. We understand that we're part of a global family, all of us working together on this spinning rock, trying to make the world a little bit better. Number 2, there are too few humanists, but if there were more, we could change some things. There are lots of non-religious people out there, it turns out, but only a tiny fraction of them identify as humanists and are involved in the humanist movement. And I thought if we had more of them, we could make the world better, more in line with our values. So, point 3, I want to make humanism so compelling, so winsome, so scrumptious, that everyone will want to join us, and then we will save the world, have first contact with the Vulcans, and build a utopian Star Trek future. That is my 3-point plan to save the world through humanism. You may now applaud. Thank you. If that sounds idealistic, or, yes, says Diane, simplistic maybe, even naive, then please remember, I was young, pretty, happy, and gay, and that is an excellent combination. But I have subsequently discovered that I was so naive. And that sense of optimism about humanism and about humanity that I moved to St. Louis 8 years ago when I came to serve this community with has been tested over the things that I have seen over the past 8 years. I moved here in June 2014 to promote those 3 values, reason, compassion, and hope, my 3 pillars of humanism, the humanist hope for the world. But the world did not comply. Over the past 8 years, each of those pillars of my humanism have been repeatedly shaken, pummeled with crises, until they've come close to crumbling. First came the murder of Mike Brown, which occurred just 2 months after I got to St. Louis, and just miles from where we are right now. I took this photo of the shrine of a shocked community made remembering their fallen friend, and in it you can still see the bloodstains on the road's surface. And I immediately joined the interfaith movement for racial justice, which sprang up in the aftermath of the shooting. In fact, here is me, protesting with other clergy, not kneeling to pray on that occasion, but still blocking the street. And as I protest, rallied, marched, my eyes were opened. I saw police officers beat, shoot, and even kidnap protesters, so enraged they were that they were the target of protests themselves. I saw cars drive straight through protest lines, saw bodies bouncing off car bonnets, heard the crunch of bones as people hit the floor, the faces behind the steering wheels contorted with rage. Mike Brown taught me 2 things. One, that the US is much more racist than I had ever imagined. And 2, that the whole criminal justice system here is screwed, totally screwed. Now, every person of color in this room is like, yeah, welcome to the party. We've known this for a long time. But I didn't know it. I knew there were problems, sure, but my picture of the world was that there were some problems that still needed to be fixed, but we were going in the right direction. Our job as humanists was to make things better, to lobby for some nice reforms that would improve already basically functioning systems, but not to completely rebuild them. That was my world picture. But Mike Brown's death and the protests that followed put a massive crack in that picture. Reason, compassion, hope. I didn't see much compassion in the response of many St. Louisans to the protests after Mike Brown's death. I didn't see compassion in the criminal justice system, which slaughtered him and allowed his killer to go free. Then, Donald Trump was elected president. Now, what is there to say about that? I mean, we all remember every week brought a new horror, the Muslim ban, which coincided with a number of changes to the immigration system, which made it more difficult even for white cisgender men like me to get in and out of this country. I almost didn't make it back once after a trip to see my family. The daily assaults on the press, on protesters, on people of color, on the institutions of democracy, on the truth itself. All of this culminating in the attack on the Capitol, an attempted coup fomented by a failed president, fueled by a cocktail of lies, conspiracy theories, white supremacist fever dreams, and weird alternative spiritualities metastasized into something wicked. But here is the worst thing, at least for me. This whole thing happened with the acquiescence, often the total collusion, of almost the entire Republican Party. In Missouri, we have plenty of politicians who still promote lies about the last election in order to build political power. And I don't know how to deal with that. And then COVID. This is a picture of a COVID. Now, I don't know how much you know about the decisions made behind the scenes in St. Louis and Missouri during COVID, but I know quite a lot about it because I was on the Interfaith Advisory Board to the mayor of St. Louis during that time, and I just want to tell you, our response to COVID was a total disaster. Of course, there's been widespread incompetence, the inability of the world's wealthiest nation to implement responses to the pandemic that other nations successfully and quite easily deployed. But incompetence I can deal with. Incompetence I sort of factor in. I now expect incompetence from my government, which is sad in itself. But what's been much harder for me to get my head around has been the pseudoscience, the denialism, the absolute tidal wave of nonsense which has overwhelmed any responsible approach to this pandemic. One might think, I thought, that a global pandemic, something so all-encompassing, so indiscriminate, so objective, would be apolitical. An issue that every thinking person could agree about. We're literally all in this together, and the facts couldn't be clearer. But no, almost everywhere, the pandemic has heightened political divisions and has driven more people into the snare of conspiracy thinking. More than 1 million Americans have died. Members of our congregation died, partly thanks to an anti-reality president and a conspiratorial response to the pandemic. So much for human reason. And now it feels like every day releases a new problem for us to deal with. The war in Ukraine, the biggest armed conflict in Europe since the Second World War. No signs of stopping. The overturn of Roe versus Wade, just the worst of a string of appalling decisions from this Supreme Court we will likely have to live with for years. So hope. I don't see a lot of hope for the future of this country. Reason, compassion, and hope. It seems to me they are in short supply. If people are so wildly unreasonable and so brazenly uncompassionate, what hope is there for humanity? Now, for a humanist like me, a Carl Sagan humanist, a Star Trek humanist, this has been devastating. It's been a full-blown crisis of non-faith. Lately, I've been questioning whether humanism, the worldview which I've dedicated my entire career, my life to, has the resources, the seriousness, has the weight to persist in times like these, or whether our assumptions about humankind are just fundamentally wrong. Is there a way, I've been asking, that we can hold to our own values when so many others are betraying those values? Is it even worth it? Can we sustain our humanism in hell? And I know from talking to you and seeing what you post online that many of us are feeling something similar. So many of us are questioning our assumptions about politics, about our society, our economy, our culture, other people, and finding that things are much worse than they allowed themselves to believe. We doubt our capacity to meet the challenges that we face. I heard that anxiety just yesterday. I was speaking at a conference in Tennessee. Yes, I traveled the USA, spreading the gospel of ethical humanism. I come back here the next day to talk to you. And a young speaker named Kelly, an activist, said, "I have just turned 18, and I feel I have less rights than my mother had." And in many ways, she's not wrong. And many of us, like Kelly, are scared instead of hopeful about the future. Does this describe you? Have any of you had similar feelings to mine? In fact, I want to invite you to be brave now. If you have been feeling downcast, anxious, scared about the future, if you've been finding it difficult to maintain a sense of hope, would you just raise your hand now? Right, okay, it's not just me. Keep your hands up for a second. Now everybody look around. Look at the people beside you who feel the same thing, who share your anxiety and your pain. Thank you. That's something we can work with. Now, it seems to me we have basically two options. As humanists living in a world such as this, we can give up on humanism entirely. We can declare it a failed project and fall into despair or uncaring nihilism. And honestly, I would not fault you if that's where you are right now. It did seem to me for a while impossible to continue to live our values in a world so hostile to them. But ultimately, I chose to reform and recommit to my humanism. I realized that just because I can't believe in a utopian humanism anymore, that doesn't mean I have to give up on humanism entirely. If we're going to live our values while others won't, we need a grounded, more realistic humanism, a humanism which is open-eyed about the existence of evil in the world, which accepts that the challenges which face us are immense, yet which charts an honest path forward. Now, it won't be like my three-point plan I shared with you earlier. It won't be a path in which humanists spread across the earth and save it. And it will not be a path that communities like ours walk alone, but it will be a path to realistic change towards a better future. So let's start by acknowledging the truth. We humanists are supposed to be people who are able to accept uncomfortable truths, right? We look reality squarely in the face. So let's accept the fact that the world is in a bad place right now, right? Let's just be honest about that. On many of the issues that we care about, human rights, equality, dignity, peace, political freedoms, we are going backwards, not forwards. The world is becoming less humanist, not more. Does that mean we stop striving to live up to our values? Does that mean we give up hope? Well, I say we don't have to. Even if we are humanists in hell, we still have hope. And when I say hope, I'm not talking about foolish optimism, right? The idea that everything's just going to turn out okay, somehow, magically. That won't serve us at all. Nor will wide-eyed utopianism, a belief that we're destined for a shiny, beautiful future. Nor, and this is a message that's particularly important for broadly liberal institutions like ours, nor will trust in the system as it is work out well for us. I cannot tell you the number of times that good liberal people have told me over the past 8 years, oh, that will never happen. He will never be elected. The court will never do that, right? You've all heard people say these things. We have to get real. That is false hope. Our institutions are broken. We need to live with that and then chart a way forward. And that's the sort of hope that I'm talking about. Practical, grounded hope. The kind that medieval Jewish scholar Maimonides was referring to when he said, hope is belief in the plausibility of the possible over the inevitability of the probable. To have hope, we must believe that the possible better future is at least plausible, and that the probable worse future is inevitable. Maimonides is calling. He likes that we are using his quote. In this model of hope, we don't believe that we will probably win, merely that it is plausible that we might win. We can accept, in fact, that we will probably lose, that the forces of anti-humanism are the more probable future, but that the nightmare future is nonetheless avoidable. And I believe, even in my most difficult moments, that a better future is at least plausible. And that's why I can still have hope. And I believe that because alongside all the soul-crushingly disappointing things that I've seen over the past 8 years, I've also seen bright spots of hope, examples of human courage, connection, community, love, which give me a glimpse of what that better future might be. One of the major sources of hope for me, of course, has been you. When a squad of ethical society members, after weeks of intense debate within our society about how to respond to the murder of Mike Brown, took our banner downtown and marched behind the massive Mike Brown puppet, that gave me hope. When I see our incredibly dedicated volunteers work with our youth to teach them positive values, despite the challenges young people have navigating this world, that gives me hope. When, during our period of COVID closure, a group of volunteers set up a pancake drive-through at the society, that gave me hope. And it gave me pancakes, which I greatly appreciated. When I saw you come together last year after almost 2 years of closure to celebrate good cheer again, that gave me hope. And to see all of you now, undaunted by an ongoing pandemic, undeterred by the political farce Missouri has become, gathering together in this place and online, keeping our community alive in the most difficult circumstances that any of us have faced in our lifetime, you give me hope too. So I still believe, even after the trials of these past few years, that the possible is plausible. I still have that hope. It is a chastened hope, though, a more grown-up hope. The things I've seen haven't totally destroyed my humanism, but they have reshaped it. And that means I need a new plan. So here, after 12 years of humanist activism and 8 years serving this community, is my new 3-part plan to save the world. I know you're very excited. First, humanists share common values with people of many different religions. Regardless of our disagreements over religious, spiritual, and metaphysical questions, we can find common ground around our ethical commitments. 2, there will probably never be enough self-identified humanists to solve the problems we face alone, so we must make common cause with religious people. The problems we face are enormous, and no single community will ever be able to solve them alone. So we have to build coalitions when we can. This is one of the reasons why I've been so active in interfaith work since I got here, is to try and build those coalitions and have the Ethical Society pull its weight as part of a team of people trying to make the world better. And finally, we have to organize with people of all religions and none to challenge entrenched injustices and broken systems so that we can make progress on the issues which face us all together. Now, this new plan is perhaps not as exciting to you as the first one, because in this plan, we are not the heroes of the story. We aren't necessarily the ones with the best values or the right answers, but instead we're part of a team, part of a coalition who will, working together, make the change that we seek. Nor will you notice in this new plan is the focus on persuasion, on persuading people to come to our side and take on our values. I don't believe anymore that we can persuade the world to get better. Instead, we have to force the world to be better, which means we need to develop power. Our job, I've realized, is not to make more people humanists, but to make more people activists, people with the skills necessary to overthrow the systems which are dragging us all backward. This is a revolutionary agenda, not a reformist one. But if we're going to do this, if we're going to take seriously the challenges we face as a community and as a world, we have to begin at home. We have to start here in this very community and ask what systems and structures are in place here at the Ethical Society of St. Louis that prevent us from becoming the sort of community we all know we want to become. And that's part of the reason why we've been working with Diane, who's here in the front, who is a diversity and equity consultant with years of experience working with humanist organizations like ours, and who's been helping us evaluate our policies, procedures, and programs to see what we can do internally to live up to our stated values more. And as part of this process, Diane is here with us this morning. She's been with us a number of weeks over the past few months. And she's created a survey featuring a series of questions about how we live our values here in the community and how we could do it better. And if you're interested, you can find it at this URL, which is on the screen. The case doesn't matter. I just tried to make it as clear to read as possible. It will, of course, be in the connection in the weekly email blast on the website, but we'll put it on the screen for you. And this survey has a series of questions that asks you to think about the Ethical Society itself and how well we are living up to the values that we say that we want to live up to. And in order to kickstart this internal conversation, we're going to spend about 10 minutes now thinking about one of these questions. And then we'll explore some of the others together in our Q&A after the program. So please stick around if you want to engage in these questions. So please welcome Diane, who is going to lead us through a little discussion of a question about this society. Diane, welcome her. There is the question.
Hello, hello, everyone. Good morning still. It's all a blur. My coffee's still kicking in. So good morning. Thank you for the talk. I have seen many of you all. It's probably my fourth trip in the last 6 months, so I appreciate it. I just really quick, before I even get into the question itself, I live in Long Beach, California. I spent 9 years in Kansas City and a lot of time here in St. Louis, and I was actually at the Weekend of Resistance in October of 2014, where you all were out, and I was out as well. And so this is really a full circle moment for me to be back with you all, and I appreciate that the conversation is happening beyond reform. It's about we have to rebuild, right? Because these systems are not necessarily made for equity and justice. So with that, we do have a series of questions. We're going to go over a question or two today. In this session, we're going to do some stuff in Q&A, and the survey will be up for 2 weeks. It'll close on the 14th. So please, you want to take some time, fill it out. But our first question, and this is going to be open, and now I should pick on the first person that raises their hand, though, right? That would be helpful. Yeah. Run. Okay. So the first question. How many of y'all have even seen this before? Maybe you haven't seen it in a long time. Is this new to folks, what's on the screen? A couple people. Okay. So when you think about the mission of the Ethical Society, to inspire ethical living in a humanist-centered congregation by affirming the worth of every person, by advocating the primacy of ethical behavior above religious creed. It's a lot of words. What's missing from that? It could be a phrase, it could be a thought. And this is just open to anyone. When you see this, what's missing? What does it need? What will give it more teeth, make it more relevant? We should be writing these down.
I think we should maybe rewrite this so it doesn't sound like it was written 100 years ago.
Okay. Modern language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems very internally focused.
Okay.
With no external direction.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, it does say humanist-centered, so good observation. Thank you. Yeah.
I think it could be helpful to add some qualifiers about what every person needs.
Yes.
For example, regardless of race or gender or age or ability.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
See a hand in the back. Thank you, James. Didn't know you'd be doing all this running.
This is my cardio for the week.
All right, it's not very activist. It's more affirming what we already have. There is the verb advocacy, but really there is a sense that we have the truth and we're going to affirm it.
Yes, thank you. Okay, all right. Y'all are going in. I appreciate this. The first one was like, we just need to change all of it. I appreciate it. Anything else? Maybe take 2 more responses.
Is there anyone on the other side of the room? Because it's been very one-side focused.
I think we need some action in there.
More action words. Okay.
Okay, great.
Up here.
Rachel.
I feel like the last part of the mission just says we're better than you.
Above any religious creed. Okay, we're better than you, elitist. Okay. Any other burning thoughts? Oh, there's one
We
back
didn't
there.
know if anyone would be willing to say anything,
No,
so
thank
this is
you.
excellent.
No, yeah, this is great. I'm going to take a couple more. I see you. Yeah.
I have a problem with the affirming the worth of every person.
Okay.
Are you saying that you want me to affirm the worth of Vladimir Putin, who is a psychopath and an epitome of evil? I mean, do you think it's possible?
To affirm. I don't have an answer for that. I'm not saying yes or no.
It's a good
It's
question.
a good question. And
Yeah,
there, I
do
know,
we
James,
really
you got to
do
run.
that?
One more. Sorry, I saw one more hand over here. I know.
Okay, Misha's the
Dun,
last
dun.
hand.
This is not the Holly run. Sorry, out of the chambers. Did y'all see the music that was playing in the back? The Chariots of Fire, those were great. That was a great montage. Go ahead.
Most of my ideas have already been covered, but
Yeah.
just like a final thought, it seems very individualistic, whereas
Yes.
James was talking about collective action.
Yes.
So maybe that could be included. It's not
Yes.
just about individuals affirming the worth of every person, but like collective activism in a context of social injustice. Just going back to what you were
Bam. That might be the
Okay.
new mission.
do you think that's enough, Diane? Or
I
do
think
you...
that's enough, yes.
Okay.
And this question is also on the survey from the link that we posted, right? So if you have some thoughts that come to mind or otherwise. Okay. So we have one other question we're going to go over, and we're going to do the rest of these during Q&A. So what words come to mind when you think about the overall future of the ethical society, particularly here in St. Louis? You can maybe
be honest.
And you can kind of like shout these out if it's just like a word. Resistance to change.
Oh,
Oh.
that's spicy.
Okay.
I
What
didn't
else?
say that. Allison said that.
What else? Yeah.
I think, I think it's based on our phrase deed before creed, but I think at times we struggle to define ourselves, and I think we can moving forward more strongly.
More, okay. Stronger definition of ourselves. What else comes to mind? You think about. Say that again. Or
The
not.
feeling
you're,
that we're at a crossroads.
You're at a crossroads. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. This is a turning point. This is, as many of y'all would say. I mean, you curse. Shit or get off the pot, right? Like this is the time. Like we've been saying it for a long time, but like the discussion that I was here for May when James was talking about the future of the ethical society was like, if we don't do something now, we will not be here anymore. Any other? Yes. Affluence. Okay. Yes, talking about more diversity as far as just like income, wealth disparity. Yes. Back there in the back. Get real. Okay. What other words come to mind? Maybe one or two more? Oh, yes. Communication. What about communication? Yes. Yes. Listen to understand, not listen to respond. Yes. Yes, thank you. An open idea versus a closed mind. Okay, maybe one more. Yeah, go ahead again.
I'll give you a mic. Yes, it's a good thing.
Just in light of the issues that we've discussed that affect the Ethical Society and the fact that James has organized this activist workshop, which I'm participating in, I was going to say like political activism.
Okay, political activism. Yeah. Okay, matching your actions to your words. All right, y'all. Dang, you went in. I appreciate y'all. We were like, are people going to engage? Are they going to say anything? So, like I said, we went over these first two questions. We're going to do more in the Q&A, but I want to give a pause so we can get on with the rest of the program. I'm going to pass it over to James to finish out his part of the discussion. I will be here afterward if you want to have any questions or whatnot, but we encourage you to stay for the Q&A after the program. Thank you all.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Diane. I really appreciate it. I want to just echo in closing something that Matthew said, which is I know that many people here feel a certain anxiety about the direction of the society in the future. The feeling that we are at a crossroads with a lot of new staff coming in, post-COVID. Of course, everyone knows we're not post-COVID, and we'll never be post-COVID, right? This is how it's going to be now. And what does it mean to be a hybrid community? What does a community look like ours, when it's facing so many challenges, which many of us probably didn't imagine that we would face? It's difficult to confront those things with courage, in a sense of the capacity of our own ability to meet those challenges and get through the other side. I'm totally confident that we can do it, right? I'm confident that you can do it. And your response to questions like these, which has shown a level of introspection and a willingness to critique our own statements, our own practices, and think carefully about the future, demonstrates to me that we have the resources to come up with an exciting idea for the Ethical Society's future. It just rests on our shoulders to actually follow through with that. So I'm going to put that up on the screen just for another second, so that if you want to take the survey, you can do that, and also encourage any of those who are interested in this discussion about our future direction to stay behind afterwards and join us for the Q&A. Thank you. Yes, also? Yes, on the survey, there's an option for you to say, yes, I want to be involved in discussing the future of the Ethical Society, and I'm sure that all of you want to be involved. So make sure that you express your interest. Thank you for your attention this morning, and I can't wait for some more music from Patrick.
Thank you, James. Hopefully we will have a bright future ahead of us, but it will take work. Let me get to my pages. All right. We are ready for collections and announcements. If you are moved to make a donation today, we appreciate anything you may be able to offer. We rely on the generosity of our members and friends to ensure our community can keep providing our many free programs. To that end, the ushers will now take up the collection. If you don't have cash with you today, you can donate at ethicalstl.org/donate, or just use the QR code on the screen. Not now, soon to be now. There we go. Or even better, become a pledging member. We would love to keep you informed about future events at the Ethical Society of St. Louis. If you'd like to join our weekly newsletter, use the QR code above to sign me up. All right, and I think we do have a couple of announcements. After platform today, we have local honey being sold in the Becker Room downstairs. All proceeds will go to the International Institute to benefit immigrants from Ukraine and other countries. And I think those are all of our announcements for today. Go. All right, we shall now have our final musical selection by Patrick Rafferty. It is Reverie Nocturne by Giulio Regondi. And yes, there we go.